Hi, I'm Madison, and my twin sister Haley and I are the copywriters and creators behind Maha Copy Co. Welcome to Six Figure Story Launch, the Masterclass. In this masterclass, we are going to teach you how to launch a new product, offer, or event on your Instagram stories. And even if you've never run a launch before, or you've literally never posted on your Instagram stories, don't worry, that was us just a year and a half ago. When we started working together in 2022, Haley and I used to put stories on the back burner big time because they seemed so time consuming. But all of that changed a year later when we were preparing to launch our first high ticket resource, the Write Your Site Workbook. If you don't already know, the Write Your Site Workbook is a resource we created to help service providers write all of their website copy like a professional copywriter, even if they had no copywriting experience. So the resource follows our signature website copy structure, and it includes hundreds of fill-in-the-blank prompts for every single headline, subheadline, paragraph, and button you could possibly need on your home about services and contact pages. So essentially, the workbook gives you all of the copy you need to write your website, which means we had to write all of that copy. And it took us so long to create. Because it's not like we used AI to write the prompts, we just personally wrote over 300 prompts and examples for all of them. And some of those prompts were full paragraphs, and all of the prompts had to be applicable to a wide variety of service-based businesses. So the point is, it took us over 6 months to create that resource. And because we poured so much time and effort into it, we wanted to give it a proper launch, which we'd actually never done at that point with any of our products before. So we decided to get serious about posting Instagram stories, and we posted stories every day for a week, selling our Write Your Site workbook alongside 4 feed posts. And that 1 week of content turned into our first ever $50,000 launch. Since then, we've used the same story launch strategy every time we're launching something new for both high ticket and low cost resources. And we've had $20,000 launches, $50,000 launches, and even a $200,000 launch on Instagram. For context, our highest price resource is the Write Your Site Workbook for $5.99. So this is not from selling like $20,000 coaching packages. And we're not talking about earning $200,000 in payment plans or in future membership payments. We're talking about $200,000 cash in about 2 weeks from free organic marketing alone. And we do not have a huge team behind us. All of our marketing and our entire business is just me and Haley working together. And because it's just the two of us, we have to focus on the numbers. So we only spend time on marketing if we know it's going to pay off. And that's why stories have become a huge part of our launch strategy and our marketing strategy in general. Because even though our posts get super high engagement and consistently lead to sales, our highest cart conversion rates actually come on the days we post stories that get a lot of replies, profile visits, and external link taps. Which makes sense because people who consistently watch your stories are often your hottest leads. So in this masterclass, we're going to teach you the basic 7-day strategy we use as the foundation for all of our launches on Instagram. And before we go any further, there's one more thing we want to mention. In this masterclass, we are going to assume that you already have a viable, profitable idea for a product or service. Because obviously, one of the most essential elements of a successful launch is putting something out that your audience actually wants or needs. But in this masterclass, we don't have time to go into that. So we're not going to teach you how to come up with a profitable offer. Instead, we are going to assume you've done the market research and the customer research, you know your offer is needed in the market, and you already have the details of your offer set out and are ready to sell it. If you're not at that point yet, take a step back and get clear on what you want to launch before coming back to this masterclass. Okay, let's dive in. So first things first, what is a launch? A launch is a business's coordinated effort to introduce something new to its audience. Often that looks like a product launch, like launching a new digital resource, like a course or a masterclass, or launching a physical product, like a book or a new beauty product in a skincare line. Or it could look like launching a collection of physical products, like a bridal dress collection or a sportswear collection in partnership with a specific affiliate or celeb. But it could also look like launching a new service or a new source of marketing, like a website going live for the first time, or starting a new newsletter, or it could look like spots or applications opening up for one of your services. And the term launch applies to all of the marketing efforts that go into the introduction of that new product or service or marketing effort. So in a single launch, you may have a landing page or a sales page for the offer, basically just one dedicated website page selling that offer. You might have an email marketing campaign, an organic social media campaign, maybe even on multiple platforms like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. You could have a paid ad campaign with Instagram ads, Facebook ads, even audio ads on podcasts. And you can have other sources of organic marketing, like podcast episodes or YouTube videos. So Instagram stories might just be one part of your launch strategy. You might be planning on creating Instagram posts alongside it, or sending emails to your email list, and maybe even using a different marketing channel altogether to promote your offer during your launch. But in this masterclass, we are talking specifically about launching on Instagram stories. There are 3 basic phases to a strategic launch on Instagram stories. Phase 1 is awareness, phase 2 is pre-launch, and phase 3 is the launch itself. So let's talk about phase 1, awareness. The awareness phase is all about increasing your audience's awareness of your product or service and getting them interested in it even before it's ready to be put out into the world. So the awareness phase can start as soon as you have your profitable product or service idea and continue while your product is in the making. But in any case, it should start before your launch period. Some people choose to skip this phase and the pre-launch phase and just do a surprise launch. Like, think about Beyonce dropping Lemonade where nobody knew it was coming. And of course, a surprise launch works really well for somebody like Beyonce because she's a household name with a really loyal fan base of people who already love her. So there's going to be a lot of excitement and maybe even more buzz when it's a total surprise. But for most businesses, yours probably included, it's going to be more strategic to build awareness of your offer with your audience before you launch. That can look like hinting to a surprise that's in the making without revealing what it is, like saying, I've been working on something for the past 2 months, can you guess what it is? It could also be directly talking about what you're creating and why you're excited about it. Like, I just finished writing chapter 15 of my book and I'm in tears, like I'm sharing so much in this book I've never shared publicly, I'm so excited to share it. And you can also comment on DMs you got, like, if someone asked, how can I learn how to do audience research? Then you could say, this is exactly why we're so excited for our upcoming stories course. It teaches you how to take advantage of stories for audience research and tells you the exact questions to ask. So you can use it with your other marketing really organically, just talking about it the way it fits in naturally. You can also give your audience a behind the scenes look at the offer while it's in the making, or a preview of what's in store. Like, for example, you could say, today I'm working on a module all about story design, drop your design questions below. Which brings me to my next point. Asking your audience for their input is a great strategy during your awareness phase. So you could ask what suggestions they have for it, what their preferences are for some of the elements that you're including, what they'd be willing to pay for the offer, or what kind of budget they have. And that last question can be a little bit difficult to put into words. So a few ways you can think about it are framing your price as a choice between specific offers. Like, you could say, which one are you most interested in? A resource for $99, a full course for $5.99, or one-to-one coaching for $19.99, just to gauge people's interest. But you can also ask what people have already invested in the problem before, so that you have an idea of how much people are willing to spend to solve the problem. The awareness phase is also a good time to consider where else besides stories you'll be marketing your launch, and then draw customers there. So for example, if you know you'll be planning an email marketing campaign, you could ask your audience to sign up to your email list to be the first to hear when your offer drops. And this is something you should continuously be doing during the awareness phase. So don't just post one story one day about the offer, make it a consistent thread that continuously shows up in your stories. The more you invite people along for the process of creation, the more interest you'll build for your launch. Then you'll move on to phase 2, the pre-launch. The The purpose of a pre-launch is to build a ton of hype for your launch and start to give your community some kind of access to your offer. Like the awareness phase, a pre-launch is not required to launch, but we highly recommend having some kind of planned, coordinated pre-launch directly before your launch. Let's go through some of the ideas of what you can do during a pre-launch to build hype, just in case you've never seen or heard of a pre-launch before. So you can do a beta launch. A beta launch is where you give a select group of people access to your offer before it's done to get their feedback so that you can refine and improve the offer before you release it to a wider audience. You can also use a beta launch to collect reviews to use in the marketing of your official launch. So a beta launch on stories could look like asking your story viewers if they want your offer for a discounted price in return for their feedback. It doesn't have to be discounted, but you'll get more interest if you offer a benefit to people for grabbing it early. And when you're doing a beta launch, the key is to make sure that the group you're selecting is down to give you in-depth feedback. So don't just let anybody join and purchase early for a super discounted price. We recommend accepting beta customers either by application or by people you know. So put out feelers to see who's interested and then handpick several people who are your ideal audience and let them know the requirements of participation before you ask if they'd like to join. You could also offer it to other professionals in your field who would have more in-depth advice to give you and could potentially become affiliates or talk up your offer beforehand during your launch. Or you could only offer it to past customers who have given you good feedback in the past and are more likely to give you good feedback now. You could also offer it to past clients who you have a strong relationship with. How you run the feedback is up to you. So you could ask participants to fill out a review form with questions about their experience with the product or service, or you could schedule live Zoom sessions to talk about the product and get their spoken feedback and ask questions like in person but online. You just need to make sure to mention the requirements of participation beforehand so that everyone knows what they're getting into. We also recommend having all of your beta group participants sign a contract to protect your products and ensure that they comply with the requirements of participation. Highly, highly recommend. There are a lot of pros to doing a beta launch. So first, you can use any constructive feedback to improve your product, which is obviously the biggest benefit. And then you can also use any positive feedback as reviews on your sales page or on your stories when you launch. So you can say things like reviews are already in, or here's what people are already saying, or the first reviews are already in and they're making me cry when you officially launch. Third, you'll also develop closer relationships with the customers who are included in your beta launch. So your beta customers often become loyal fans and they'll be more likely to buy products from you in the future and send you rave reviews for those too. And lastly, any story viewers who don't participate in the beta group will still know that you did a beta launch, so they'll know you're invested in making the product as good as possible. So in that way, it can increase the trust they have in you and your authority. The next way to build hype in a pre-launch is with a soft launch. A soft launch is similar to a beta launch because you're giving early access to your offer to a smaller group of people. But unlike a beta launch, the goal is not to refine the product. In a soft launch, you're just giving the final product to people. So you can think of a soft launch kind of like a movie premiere where the movie hasn't officially come out in theaters yet, but it's being shown to a smaller group of lucky people who get to see the final product and then start drumming up buzz about it ahead of time. So a soft launch could look like giving surprise access to your story viewers before anyone else, which has the added benefit of making people feel like your stories are a good place to continuously show up so that they don't miss out on those kind of offers. Or you could also do a soft launch for current clients who are already the target audience for your new offer. So if you have a membership and you're launching a new small group coaching offer, then you could do a soft launch just to the people in your membership first before opening it up to the public. You could also launch to a small group of story viewers by using your close friends feature. So for example, if you wanted to do a soft launch for just your past customers or clients, offering them and them alone exclusive early access to your offer, then you could add them to your close friends list on Instagram and only make your stories visible to your close friends. If you're doing this, make sure in your stories that you talk about how they're one of the exclusive people who are seeing this story. You can also give soft launch access somewhere other than Instagram, like to your email list or to anyone who joins a live launch event beforehand. Running a soft launch also gives you the opportunity to address any issues, bugs, or mistakes before releasing your offer to a wider audience. So just like with a beta launch, you can gather reviews and testimonials in a soft launch and then use them in your launch marketing. If you do a soft launch, we highly recommend building in enough time between your soft launch and the real launch for people to use your offer and start sending you reviews ahead of your official launch date so that you can use those reviews in your marketing. Because with a soft launch, you're not asking participants to give you feedback directly. Remember, you don't need to share reviews on day one of your real launch. So how much time you build into your schedule between the two launches depends on how long you think it will take people to go through your offer, and also when you plan to post reviews in your marketing. Even for our big offers, we typically start receiving reviews within like 24 hours of the launch. But if you have something like a full course or a product that needs to be delivered in the mail, it will obviously take longer for those people to be able to give you feedback. The next thing you could do for a pre-launch is have a pre-sale or pre-order campaign. Pre-sales and pre-orders gives your customers the opportunity to purchase your offer before it's released to the public. Generally with pre-sales, the benefit is that you know you'll get an item before it runs out. So this is only a benefit for items that are expected to sell out fast. If that's the case in your business, good for you and congrats, like that's fantastic. But if it's not, you want to give your customers another reason to buy early. So for example, you could give them an early bird discount, or you could give them a special bonus. You could also have phased pre-sale discounts to drive up hype even more. So for example, you could do something like, if you buy this week, you can get this offer for 50% off, and it goes up $100 every week until the launch. At this point, you might be wondering, how long should a pre-sale campaign last? And the truth is, it depends. You might decide to open pre-orders a week or two before your launch, depending on your offer and your strategy, or you might want to have a longer pre-sale campaign. So for example, if you're launching a book, you might have a pre-order campaign that lasts multiple months because pre-orders are a big key to securing a spot on bestseller lists, like on the New York Times bestseller list. So in that case, it would benefit you to have a lot of pre-orders, and you'd want to spend a lot of time building up your pre-order count. And if you have an e-commerce shop, you might want to get a good idea of the demand for an offer that often sells out. So in that case, you could give your customers the ability to pre-order a best-selling item months before it's restocked, just to make sure your supply can easily match your demand and you're maximizing your profits. No matter what, it's important that you only offer pre-orders when you already know the date or general time frame when your offer will become available. So at the very least, like late September or the week of May 8th. Because if you're not able to tell your customer when they'd receive the product, it's harder for them to trust that you'll actually deliver on their purchase, and that can have a huge effect on your sales. Also, if you have a longer pre-sale campaign, you might want to consider setting up a post-sale email sequence for any buyers so that people can receive updates on their order and you can keep customers engaged and hyped up for the release to reduce buyer's remorse. Another way to build hype during a pre-launch is by having a giveaway. With giveaways, you give away a select number of your product or offer for free. So let's talk a bit about giveaways. There are 4 basic types you could use. The first being a sweepstakes. Sweepstakes are by far the most common type of giveaway you'll see on Instagram and all over social media. And with a sweepstakes, people enter for a chance to win following whatever your giveaway guidelines are. So often with sweepstakes, you can give people the opportunity for multiple entries when they do more than one task, like tag a friend in the comments or post an Instagram post or story by tagging you, and then like, following, or commenting on a post for a chance to win. With a sweepstakes, you may choose one winner or you might choose multiple winners, but in either case, the winners should definitely be chosen at random. You can use an Instagram giveaway picker to randomly pick a winner. There are both free and paid tools you can find online, and generally, if you have a more complicated entry requirements, you will need a paid account. But if you're just picking someone from the comments, the free tools will work. The next type of giveaway is a contest. A contest is a competition where people compete and one winner is chosen based on their performance. So for example, you could have a caption contest where you ask your community to caption something and the best caption wins, or any other type of submission contest, like submit something for a chance to win, where you pick a winner from the submissions and maybe just pick like your top 3 to 5 favorites, or even have your audience vote on the winner. The next type of giveaway is a challenge, generally with multiple reward levels. These giveaways are based on contestants performing certain actions to reach a reward level. So it could be something like show up to 30 virtual yoga classes in 30 days and win 1 month of free yoga, show up to 20 and win 2 free yoga classes, and show up to 10 and win a free yoga towel. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be that everyone who shows up to 30 gets 1 month of free yoga, but you have to reach that level in order to be entered for that giveaway. These work really well if you have a business where you're encouraging or motivating people to take certain actions, like if you're a fitness coach or a wellness coach. If you already have a free 7-day, 15-day, or 30-day challenge, you could make it more interesting by doing it live with your audience, using your stories to show up daily during the challenge period, and then selecting winners at the end. And the final type of giveaway is a raffle. A raffle involves people paying a fee or purchasing something in order to be entered to win. So like with sweepstakes, the winner of a raffle has to be chosen at random. A raffle can be especially intriguing if the prize to be won is way more valuable than the offer people need to buy in order to win. So for example, if you're a business coach, you could run a raffle where anyone who purchases your course during a week has a chance to win a one-on-one personalized business coaching VIP day with you worth like $5,000. Or if you have a clothing boutique, you could say that for every $50 you spend, you get an entry for a chance to win a full wardrobe capsule valued at over $500. Obviously, it's much less intriguing if you need to pay $500 for a chance to win something that's worth $50. So be strategic with the offers you choose to include in your raffle and how they relate to each other. So those are the 4 types of giveaways you could run during a pre-launch to build hype for your launch. But with any type of giveaway, you need to have very clear rules on how to enter and clear rules on who is eligible to enter, including any restrictions like age or location. You need to have clear rules on who's eligible to win, like maybe you must be following me, or you must like this story, or you must share this post to your stories. These can also be just how to enter in general. You must have a specific time frame for when it begins and when it ends. Always make sure to include the time zone. You'll need an explanation of how the winner will be chosen and an explanation of how the winner will be notified once they've won. Also, it's good to include how they can claim their prize or how it will be delivered. And the last pre-launch tactic we'll talk about is what we call a funneled launch. A funneled launch is where you use your pre-launch as the opportunity to launch another lower priced or free offer that funnels into your main launch. So essentially you're having 2 launches back to back, with the first launch acting as your pre-launch. This works really well if you're planning to launch a higher priced product and you want to get more potential leads interested in your offer. So you'd use your pre-launch to release a lower priced or free offer that solves a smaller but related problem. It can even give people the knowledge that they would need before jumping into your higher priced offer. And then you could include those buyers in your sales funnel for the higher priced offer once it launches. So for example, if you're launching a new in-person personal styling service, then your pre-launch could be a guide to finding your personal style. Or if you're launching a belly dance course, then your pre-launch could be a 30-minute belly dance video. And if you're launching an email marketing course, your pre-launch could be a free webinar about how to write or set up your first welcome sequence, or about the first 5 emails you need to write when you start email marketing. So basically you're using your pre-launch to get more people interested and feeling the need for your big launch offer. You can create even more hype by offering related discounts. For example, if you buy the dance class this week, you'll get 50% off my full belly dance course when it launches next week. Remember that pre-launch is still about creating hype for your main offer. So even if you're selling a different product that week and you want to make money on it, you'll still be using it as an entry point to talk about your upcoming launch. These dual launches generally work best with services and digital products rather than physical products. But the downside of this pre-launch strategy is that it takes a lot of planning and preparation, since you need to coordinate what is essentially 2 launches back to back. But it can also be very lucrative. So those are 5 different pre-launch strategies you can use to increase hype for your launch: the beta launch, soft launch, pre-sale, giveaway, and funneled launch. But just to be clear, those aren't the only pre-launch strategies out there. They're just the really common ones. But you can get creative with your pre-launch. You can use a combination of these tactics or come up with something totally different. Just remember that the purpose is to build hype for your offer and warm up your leads so that when your launch drops, they are hot leads. After your pre-launch is complete, it's time to move on to phase 3, the launch. The purpose of your launch is to put your offer out into the world officially and make the people who want it or need it jump at the chance to get it now. Your launch phase officially starts when you make your offer available to purchase for your wider audience and typically lasts about 7 to 10 days. At this point, your leads should be warmed up and your intention for launch week is to sell as frequently as possible, which means you want to maximize your marketing efforts, aka you should be showing up on stories every single day. Leading up to and during a launch, you'll have a lot of logistics and preparation to manage, like making sure your website is updated and working, making sure your links and checkout pages are all working, making sure any discount codes are active and good to go, making sure you don't have any supply chain issues and you don't have any distribution issues and your product or service is delivered properly, and making sure any delivery emails or follow-up emails or notifications are working properly. So there's a lot to focus on before you even launch, just in addition to finishing your product and making sure it's good to go. And once you do, you need to be prepared to fix any issues and be on top of customer support, which basically means that you do not want to be planning your story marketing for your launch in the moment while it's happening. Remember, a launch is a highly coordinated effort. You should have all of your marketing planned and ready to go before you launch. So in the remainder of this masterclass, we're going to share a 7-day story strategy you can use during your launch, but we want to emphasize that you should be using this story strategy and planning out your stories before you launch, so that during launch week, you already have all of your story slides prepped and ready to post. Okay, let's get into it. This is the foundation of our 7-day story launch strategy. Day 1 is the introduction, where you introduce your offer and any terms of the sale, like discounts or special bonuses. Day 2 is the big problem or desire, where you help your audience visualize and understand the problem that your offer helps them solve, or the big desire it will fulfill for them if your offer doesn't solve a problem. Day 3 is the transformation, where you give your audience an inspiring vision of what's possible for them. Day 4 is the cost of waiting, where you help your audience overcome any last objections they might have to your offer. Then day 5 is the Q&A, where you humanize your business and give your audience a chance to relate back to you personally and get value from you. Day 6 is called the sneak peek, and that's where you give people a peek into what they'll get when they buy. And day 7 is the last chance, where you build urgency for the last chance to get your offer. In the 7-day launch sequence downloadable, you'll find pre-written story templates for each of the 7 days. You can use the templates to write all of the messaging for your launch quickly and easily. We've even included examples to show you what each one looks like in action. But the templates aren't the only way to write stories for a launch. And honestly, we don't want you to have to rely on templates alone. We want you to understand the strategy behind writing a sold-out launch, so that whether you use our plug-and-play templates or write your own stories, you have total confidence in your launch stories from here on out, and you know how to use the templates to their fullest advantage. So for each day of the 7-day launch sequence, we're going to talk about how the message should flow, what content needs to be included, and we'll share examples for different businesses so you can see what it looks like in practice. We'll start with day 1, the introduction. Day 1 is what is often referred to as launch day. It's the first day your offer officially goes live and is available to buy. The purpose of your day one stories is to introduce your audience to your offer and lay out the details of your offer as clearly and succinctly as possible. So in your introduction stories, you want to explicitly lay out what your offer is and what's included, why people should be excited to get it now, who the offer is for, how they can get it now, and what will happen after they get it, if that applies to your offer and is important for people to know. So there's a lot of ground to cover on day one. Some offers might be able to cover all of that info in 3 slides, while some might need more than 10 slides. In general, the bigger and more expensive your offer is, the more slides you'll need and the more details you'll have to share. But you don't need to get into the nittiest grittiest details of your offer right away on day one. The main goal of your day one stories is to give your audience offer clarity. You want people to be able to watch your stories and then go tell a friend what your offer is about without having any trouble explaining it. And that's what this introduction flow does. It covers all of your bases. Now, before you explain what your offer is, you need a story hook. There are 2 ways you can approach the opening of your stories on day one. The first way is as a direct sell, and the second is with a natural sell. With the direct sell, you'll get right to the point with a teaser hook that lets people know that something big is happening, like it's finally here, or it's happening, or the wait is finally over. And then you'll explicitly name the offer that's now available right on slide 1. So here's what that looks like. It's finally here. Our thrift capsule is now available. Or it's happening. Spots in Summer Salesapalooza are officially open. Or the wait is finally over. Our brand new template collection just dropped. Introducing your offer with a direct sell on slide 1 is the way to go if you went hard in the awareness and pre-launch phases so that you're launching your offer to a really warm or hot audience. You've been sharing about it for a while, there's been some anticipation, so people already know it's coming. But if you're introducing an offer to a cold audience, meaning if you're going to sell a new offer without creating much awareness about it before it happens or without running a pre-launch at all, then a direct sell won't have the same impact because there hasn't really been much anticipation leading up to the launch. And in that case, you need to use what we call a natural sell strategy to warm up your audience to your offer before you introduce it as the solution to people's problems. In our Sell with Stories course, we teach you all about the natural sell and how to create stories that gently lead into a sale. But if you don't have the full course, we've included a few ways you can warm up your audience on day 1 of the 7-day launch sequence downloadable. For the purposes of this masterclass, we are going to assume that you've put in the work for all 3 phases of a launch, people are already aware that something is in the works, and you did some kind of pre-launch to build anticipation for your offer, so a direct sell is the way to go. But whether you open with a direct sell or a natural sell, the next thing you need to do is explain what the offer is. The best offer descriptions will explain what the offer is literally and what it gives you, because the goal is to immediately connect what your offer is to what your people want. So first, explain the main elements of your offer with details like the type of deliverable it is, the size, the scope, and even a description of the product itself if it's not self-explanatory, like a budgeting spreadsheet that automatically connects to your bank account. So for example, that could look like a 90-minute course on investing in your 30s, or a custom website design package, or a 10-piece capsule wardrobe. And then you'll follow that with what it will give people who buy. So that might look like the main problem the offer solves, or what it will help them achieve, or the big benefit it gives them. So for example, a 90-minute course on investing in your 30s to help you start building wealth, or a custom website design package that will give you full branding and design for as many web pages as you need, or a 10-piece capsule wardrobe fully thrifted for all the people who want to be sustainable in style. So those are the offer descriptions you would use to explain what the offer is. Then you'll get into the nitty-gritty of what it includes, aka how it accomplishes the promise of the big offer. What it includes can sound like, here's what's inside, or what's inside, or here's what you get, here's what you'll learn. it comes with, or let's look at the details. But generally, what it includes looks like a list. You'll want to list out all of the individual features that are included in the offer. And the best way to present this information is by using our favorites, bullet points. You can use any kind of bullet, dots, emojis, numbers, it doesn't matter, but just keep it consistent. Don't use a bunch of different emojis for each bullet point because it'll be distracting. The point is to keep it easy on the eyes. Every bullet should answer the question, here's what this offer will do for you. So even though you're listing your features, you need to add the benefit of each of the individual features. So a sneak peek bullet point gives your audience a peek at the knowledge they'll gain, whereas blind bullets tell them what they'll gain, what the benefit is, without revealing how they'll get it. Let's look at an example. So if you're selling a 90-minute course on investing in your 30s to help you start building wealth, then your sneak peek bullets would look like you'll learn how much you need to invest monthly into an IRA to accumulate over $1 million for retirement and how to make it work even if you have a low income. Or why renting a home instead of buying can actually save you more money over time and how to know when buying is the better decision. But those same learning points written as blind bullets would sound like you'll learn a sneaky investing trick that will allow you to save the same amount every month but receive 3 times more when you retire. Or a little known secret of top financial consultants that could save you over $500,000. Notice how in the sneak peek bullets, you get a sneak peek into the information. So you know that you'll learn about IRAs and why renting might be a better way to build wealth. But in the blind bullets, you don't get any tangible information about the topics you're going to learn about. You just know you'll learn a sneaky investing trick and a little known secret. Blind bullets increase curiosity, where sneak peek bullets give credence to your authority and prove that you know what you're talking about. So in your list, you want to include a mix of both, preferably a sneak peek first and then followed by a blind bullet. We recommend having more sneak peek bullets than blind bullets in general because it will give you more authority and avoids making your content sound like clickbait. After you've listed what your audience will walk away with, it's time to explain why people should be excited to jump in now. During a launch, you need to give people a logical reason why getting an offer immediately is better than getting it at any other time in the future. So that could look like a limited time discount, a limited time bonus or special offer, or a limited opportunity. And that often sounds like this week only, it's 20% off, or and if you buy it now, you'll also get, and this week or today only, it comes with this bonus, or like the first 10 people who buy will also get. If you're planning a pre-sale or any other pre-launch campaign, you'll want to think about how it will work with whatever special offer you're giving your audience during your launch. So for example, if you're giving people a 20% off early bird discount, then obviously you wouldn't want to offer 30% off during launch week because then there wasn't any benefit to buying it early. So think strategically about how any pre-launch and launch deals work together to make it as beneficial for your people as possible, but also as uncomplicated for you to set up in the back end of your systems. After you give people a reason to jump in now, you want to affirm to your audience that it's the right option for them. Because at this point, people should be thinking it sounds like a good deal. So give them a final confirmation that it's not just a deal, it's a deal specifically for them. You'll do that by giving them a way to self-select in and say, yes, this offer is just what I need. It was definitely made for me. So this could look like listing their specific problems or desires, naming who it's not right for and giving these people the chance to opt out, or calling out the ideal audience directly. Let's look at some examples. So listing their specific problems or desires could look like this is for you if, and then actually listing the problems and desires, or it could look like if you experience these problems, you'll love it, or this will be your new favorite thing, it'll be the best money you ever spent, etc. Naming who it's not right for could look like if you don't experience this problem or have already solved this issue, then this isn't for you, but if you are still struggling, it's a no-brainer. And calling out the ideal audience directly could look like it's perfect for this niche audience who wants this big desire or who experienced this big problem. Then you'll finish day one by sharing how to get the offer and what happens next. You'll share how to get the offer with a specific call to action. So for example, it could be a CTA button like shop now, view the collection, sign up now, or it could be a direct instruction for what you want people to do next, like reply invest for the link, or like this story and share it to your stories for a chance to win. Then you can give insight into whatever happens next, including what will literally happen immediately after they take the action, like if you'll be in touch with them or if they'll get a confirmation email, or what needs to happen during a purchase, like if they need to add a discount code, or what will happen with any sales or bonuses, so like when the discount period will end or how giveaway winners will be chosen. And here is a final pro tip. After you post these introduction stories with all of the details of your offer, you can create a story highlight, and forever from then on, you can direct people to that highlight to get more details on that offer. If you decide to do this and you have limited time discounts, you could consider putting your discounts on a separate slide so that one can be easily deleted from your highlight in the future after the discount is over. And then on every other slide, just use neutral language rather than mentioning the discount. So for example, instead of saying get it now for 20% off, on a link button, just say check it out. This is only if you want to keep the highlight up in the future because you don't want to have people DMing you 6 months later asking if they can still get that discount. Now let's move on to day 2, the big problem or big desire. So the purpose of your day 2 stories is to bring attention to the big problem your offer is here to solve, or if your offer doesn't solve a problem, the big desire it's going to fulfill. So most offers will solve a problem, but if your offer doesn't solve a problem, so for example, if you sell jewelry or have a formal wear shop, then you won't be able to position your offer as a solution to a problem, and instead you'll need to position it as the fulfillment of a big desire. Because most people are going to buy a pair of hoop earrings or a dress because they like it, not because it solves a problem for them. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule, so if your homemade jewelry is waterproof and will never tarnish, then you could focus on the problem of tarnishing jewelry, or if your formal dresses are made specifically for pregnant women, then you could focus on the problem of how difficult it is to find elegant, formal maternity dresses. If your offer solves a unique problem, then you definitely want to go the big problem route, but it needs to be a unique problem. So if the only problem you can come up with is something that every other competitor in your field can also solve, like for example, they have an upcoming event and need an outfit to wear, then you'll need to go the big desire route. When you're writing about a big desire, you will actually write about it and think about it similarly to how we talk about the big problem. So let's talk about the big problem route for day 2 first. The first step is to make sure you choose the right problem to focus on. When you read copy that feels basic or doesn't really hit, it's often because the writer chose the wrong size problem to address in their copy. So either they chose a problem that's too big to solve or too small to feel really important. So for example, say you're a therapist for perfectionists. A problem like, here's why you're feeling pressure, is far too big of a problem. It doesn't give us insight into what the pressure feels like or even what it's necessarily related to. And when problems are big and vague, like do you feel stuck or are you always in burnout, they don't feel personal or specific enough to make your reader feel seen. On the other hand, problems can also be too small. So a problem like, do you spend too long editing emails before you send them, might be relevant to your target audience, but it probably feels more like a minor inconvenience rather than something that majorly impacts their life. Big problems like, here's why you're feeling pressure, will feel vague and unspecific and unrelatable, while small problems like, do you spend too long editing emails before you send them, will feel insignificant, inconsequential, and honestly boring. The big problem you use in day 2 of your launch message needs to be a Goldilocks problem. It should be big enough to feel like a main problem for your target audience, but small enough to feel personal and relevant. You'll know you have a Goldilocks problem that's just the right size when it's a specific, significant, showable symptom, meaning it will be specific about what's wrong. So Goldilocks problems don't leave you with follow-up questions. You know exactly what the problem is. Significant in that people who have experienced the problem will agree right away that it's worth investing time or money or effort to solve. Showable in that you either have a clear visual of the impact of the problem or that the problem is actually tangible and can be measured. And they're also symptoms of a bigger problem rather than the underlying problem itself. That last point about it being a symptom is really important for your overall message, because the problem you frame your message with should not be the big underlying problem your people have, because big underlying problems will often feel too intimidating or vague for people to immediately relate to. So instead, when you write about the problem they're actually experiencing, like the one that feels most present for them, but is usually a symptom of something bigger, they'll feel like you actually are talking about them. So the Goldilocks problem isn't the underlying problem, like you're dehydrated, you struggle with perfectionism, your website copy lacks a real sales strategy, or you don't know what kind of content people actually want to see. Instead, your Goldilocks problem is one of the symptoms, like you have a headache, you procrastinate a lot, even tasks you know will only take you 10 minutes to complete, like replying to emails. Your website makes less than 3 sales a month, or you have 500 plus posts and less than 1,500 followers. So see how each of those symptoms is easier to recognize and say yes to than the more vague underlying problem. In the perfectionist example, here's why your feeling pressure is not specific, significant, or showable. We're left with questions like, what kind of pressure, or what does feeling pressure look like? And without more context, feeling pressure is actually not necessarily a significant problem for all people. Like if the content was talking about a massage or going into labor, then pressure would be normal and expected. The small problem, do you spend too long editing emails before you send them, is specific, and it's a symptom of a bigger problem like perfectionism or hyperfocus, but it's not showable or significant. Because what does too long mean? Does it mean like rereading a bunch of times or spending 20 minutes on an email that should take 30 seconds? And you also don't immediately think that the problem is super significant or just significant enough to care about solving right away. When you're trying to come up with a Goldilocks problem, think about a problem that feels very present and looming for your audience. It should be something that's on their mind on a daily or weekly basis. So ask yourself, what do your people go to bed or wake up worrying about? What are they fretting over? What do they feel ashamed to talk to their friends and family about? And what feels frustrating because it happens again and again? If you find that your Goldilocks problem is too big and you need to make it smaller, you can ask yourself, what does that look like? What are they doing or thinking when they're experiencing this problem? Or if this problem was in a movie, what would be happening in the scene? And if you find that your problem is too small and you need to make it bigger, then ask yourself, what's the underlying problem? What's the greater impact of that one action? Or what pattern or behavior does it cause or does it show up as? So for the underlying problem of perfectionism, feeling pressure is too big of a problem and spending too long editing emails is too small of a problem. But a just right size problem could sound like you procrastinate a lot. Even tasks you know will only take you 10 minutes to complete, like replying to emails. And we know that it's a Goldilocks problem because it's specific, it's significant, it's showable, and it's a symptom of the bigger problem. The goal of your day 2 stories is to show people that what they're experiencing is just the visible tip of the iceberg. You'll start with a Goldilocks problem your audience can easily relate to, so something that feels really present for them in their lives, and then you slowly and logically reveal why that problem is actually just one visible symptom of the bigger underlying problem your people need to solve. In that way, you'll be positioning your offer not just as something that will solve the problem that's right in front of them, but as something that will solve the bigger underlying problem they didn't necessarily know they had. And that will make your offer feel that much more important and significant and essential to buy right away. Because not only does it solve that one Goldilocks problem they can instantly relate to, but it also solves a much bigger problem impacting their life. Now, obviously, your offer must address both the Goldilocks problem and the underlying problem for this strategy to work. So let's look at the flow of the big problem sequence on day 2. First, you'll name a Goldilocks problem, a specific, significant, or showable symptom. Then you'll address a misconception people have about the Goldilocks problem or about how to solve it. Then you'll provide logic, facts, or evidence to prove the misconception wrong. Then you'll identify the underlying problem or what actually matters or what needs to happen. Then you'll introduce your solution to the underlying problem and then invite them to take action to solve it. You can see how we put this entire flow together in the 7-day launch sequence downloadable. By the end of your stories, you want people to recognize that whatever they thought they were struggling with is actually a bigger problem than they realized, but also that whatever they've been doing to treat the symptom isn't working for a reason. Now let's talk about day 3, the transformation. So at this point, you've introduced your offer and you've set up the problem it will solve or the big desire it will deliver on. And now on day 3, you're going to help people see what's possible once they dive into the offer. So how will it improve their life? What will change for them? What's the transformation they can expect to see? But the focus of these stories isn't really about the transformation they'll ultimately receive. The focus of these stories is actually about the shift they personally need to make to believe that the future transformation is possible for them. So what transformation do they need to make in their life or in the way they're thinking before the future transformation will be possible for them? That's what these stories are about, and that's what they'll address. So in order to write your transformation message, you need to start by finding the main objection your audience has to your offer. No matter what your offer is, people are going to come to you with objections and reasons why they think your offer won't work for them. Your goal is to address the main objection stopping people from believing that the transformation is possible for them or that your offer is the right choice. So objections could come from past experiences with similar offers in your industry. So if they worked with a copywriter before who they didn't like, or if they bought an email resource that was unhelpful, or if they tried barefoot shoes before but they didn't quite fit right. It could also come from preconceived notions about what's possible. So if they think stories are only worth it if you have 5,000 followers or more, or if they think entrepreneurship is only something you can do if you have money, or if they think having a healthy cholesterol level isn't possible because high cholesterol just runs in the family. It could also be misconceptions about your offer. So if they think couples therapy is only for couples with real problems, or if they think all business coaching is expensive, or that pelvic floor exercises are only for people who struggle with incontinence. Or it could be limiting beliefs about themselves or their situation. So if they think they're not fit enough to try pole dancing, or anything that sounds like not enough is going to be a limiting belief. So I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, cool enough, pretty enough, all the stuff like that. Or if they think dating apps just aren't for them and they won't meet anybody with their interests. So basically anytime someone is writing a possibility off, even though it's logically very possible, that's a limiting belief. And sometimes objections are valid. So if someone's objection is, I'm on a $0 budget right now, then cool. Your goal is not to devalidate their legitimate reasons for not buying your offer. Your goal is to challenge the objections that relate to the underlying feeling that transformation isn't possible for them. So objections are not the same as people's reasons, logical reasons why purchasing isn't right for them. Objections have to be objectively false or misguided or limiting beliefs. So the objections you're going to focus on aren't things like, I already have enough skirts, because that isn't a false or misguided or limiting belief. There are things like, skirts never look good on me. So the first thing you need to consider is, why does your audience feel that solving their problem is not possible for them? And why do they think your offer isn't right? And you need to put very specific words to their hesitations or their limiting beliefs. So how would they finish the sentence? I would take this action or buy the offer, but, or I could take this action or get the offer, but, or I wish I could take this action, but. You want the objection you land on to stem from the biggest belief they need to let go of in order to understand that taking action is the best choice for them. So that means you need to dig beneath the surface of the common objections to get to the more complicated feelings and beliefs causing them. Because the real objection people need to overcome isn't as simple as "I'm too busy right now." It's the limiting belief causing that objection. Like, other things I have going on in my life right now feel like a bigger priority. It's not "I don't have time." It's "I can't prioritize time to myself because I need to take care of my family and their needs are more important than mine." It's not the right time. It's "adding another thing to my plate will only make things harder for me." And it's not "I can't afford it." It's "other purchases are more valuable to me right now." Case in point, before we started posting Instagram stories, my objection wasn't just "I don't have time to post stories." Even though that might have been a big part of what I was actually telling myself, underneath that excuse, the feelings holding me back from posting stories had to do with mostly limiting beliefs. So stories were out of my comfort zone and I was afraid to spend time on them when my time as a business owner was already so limited. I would have felt like I failed our business if I put time and effort into something that ended up being a huge waste of time. And I also felt like I wasn't good at video content, which I'm not super comfortable with naturally. And honestly, I felt like I wouldn't be cool or natural or interesting enough on camera. And those feelings could be summed up by the objections: I could fail, or it could be a waste of time, or I'm not cool or interesting enough to post stories. So the internal shift I needed to make was to know that it's possible to feel like Instagram is way out of your comfort zone and still succeed at it. I needed to know that it's possible to be a super introvert and still be able to build a following and a business on Instagram in a way that aligns with my values, which includes being off of stories and not spending all my time on social media, and my way of living. So the flow for the transformation sequence on day 3 can look something like this. First, you'll introduce the objection, then why the objection is valid or relatable. Then you'll dig beneath the surface of the objection or hit it with logical reasoning. Then you'll introduce your solution with the objection in mind. Then you'll share your vision of the future transformation or what's possible. And then you'll invite them to take action. So by the end of your stories, you want people to recognize that the vision of success is even more possible than they realized or is closer than they imagined. And even if their objections are valid, there's a path through them and they've been the ones holding themselves back. And if you don't know what objections your audience has or what they need to hear, it's really important to actually ask them. So post a question box on your Instagram stories asking them, what are you most worried about when it comes to a topic? Or what's stopping you from taking this action? Or what hesitations do you have about offer? You can use the most common answers or the answers that are repeated over and over to frame the focus of your transformation message. You can even post this story right now, like pause this and go post it. And don't be afraid to repost question boxes multiple times or try out slightly different questions. But remember to focus on objections that are false, misguided, or limiting beliefs, and then find the story beneath the objection. Now let's move on to day 4, the cost of waiting. So day 1 was all about introducing your offer. Day 2 was about educating your audience on the underlying problem they're facing and turning that into a bigger problem than they realized. Day 3 was about helping them understand that solving the problem is more possible than they realized. And now we're at day 4, which is about making them want to solve the problem now. And you want to do that by highlighting how the problem is impacting them or areas of their life negatively right now so that they feel inspired to solve it as quickly as possible. So to do this, we're going to come back to the symptoms of the problem. So in day 2, the big problem, you started your story sequence with a Goldilocks problem that was a symptom of an underlying problem. In this sequence, you want to show your audience how another one of those symptoms of the underlying problem is negatively impacting them to increase the urgency of the situation. So you're going to start by finding a new symptom that your audience is experiencing as a result of the big problem. So for example, say you're a mobility coach and the underlying problem is that your audience doesn't prioritize mobility, or they treat it as an afterthought because they're under the impression that workouts have to be hard to be good, or that mobility is easy. So they do weightlifting and cardio constantly, but they don't really prioritize mobility. And some of the symptoms of that are that they have bad posture, they have knee or other joint pain when doing exercises, their posture when weightlifting isn't ideal because they have limited mobility in some joints, maybe they plateau in their workouts because their mobility is limited, and they're more prone to injuries. So now you're going to take one of those symptoms and make your audience aware of how it's affecting them, including the time, effort, or money they're put into fixing that problem that they might not even be aware of. Because your audience is likely already putting time, effort, or money into solving the problem. And if they're not doing anything to respond to the problem, it's likely still costing them something, and they might not even realize it. So let's take joint pain in the knees as an example. When someone has knee pain, they might stop running even though they love to run, or stop doing squats and other exercises that could put strain on their knees. They could stop going on long walks or hikes, or they could be less active with their kids, like not wanting to get down on all fours. And they might be trying to solve the problem already by avoiding exercises like running and squatting, or lessening the amount of weight they're squatting or the amount of runs they do. They could be taking longer breaks from working out, or even paying for x-rays and MRIs, or they could be going to a physical therapist or a masseuse or a chiropractor. Now, all of these options aren't necessarily bad things to do. Like, for example, it's good to go to a PT. But all of the solutions are costing them something, whether it's time or money or energy or progress. Whatever it is, there's a cost. And they'll continue to pay the cost of the problem until they focus on the underlying issue, which in this case is working on their mobility proactively. So in this story sequence, we're going to make people aware that this common problem is actually a symptom of the underlying issue, and then get them to acknowledge that they're already doing something to solve the problem. So they're already putting time or energy or resources into fixing the problem, even if they're not aware of it, or if it's a cost they'll have to pay in the future. So you want to start your story sequence by setting your audience up to acknowledge that they have this problem and that they're already putting effort into solving it. That could look like putting up a poll, asking your audience what they do when they have joint pain. So for example, the poll could be, how do you deal with knee joint pain? And then there could be options like avoid exercises that trigger the pain, take a break for a few days, lessen the weight, or go to a PT. And then you want to show your audience how whatever they're doing is never going to solve their problem, and explain the underlying issue. When you're choosing a symptom to focus on in these stories, choose a symptom that's costing them a lot to solve. So think about, what are they currently doing to solve the problem that's not really working? Or what have they been told will solve the problem, but it's really just a temporary solution for the problem? Or what's not solving the underlying issue, costing them in time, money, energy, or other resources? So the full flow for the cost of waiting sequence on day 4 can look something like, get your audience to acknowledge a problem and the cost. Then you would name the cost. Explain the problem with only treating the symptom, then explain what the underlying problem really is, then introduce the solution and invite them to take action. By the end of your stories, you want people to recognize that the cost of not getting your offer is more than the cost of the offer, and they should get it now to avoid spending their time, money, or effort, or resources on a solution that will never give them the outcome they want. It's worth it to pay the price, because if they don't, they'll pay another larger price in some way or another. So let's move on to day 5, the Q&A. On day 5, you're going to give your audience a chance to ask you questions. The purpose is to answer questions related to the offer you're promoting, but it's also to simply connect. Every time you personally show up to answer people's questions or share advice, you humanize your business. This is also a chance to give away value and remind people of your authority in the industry while also promoting your launch. So on the morning of day 5, whenever your audience is the most active, post a question box and ask your audience to ask you anything or ask you questions about a specific topic related to your offer. The goal here could be to give valuable advice that shows your authority. So like if you're selling business coaching, then you could tell people to ask a question they have about business, and then you would actually share the advice you'd give them or different factors that would play into how you answer the question, which would then tie into talking about how much more they'll get if they join your one-on-one coaching. Or if you're offering style coaching, you could ask people to send you pictures of a clothing item they never wear to have you style it or give an outfit recommendation. Or if you're selling a new skincare line, you could ask people to tell you what they struggle with skincare-wise and that you'll recommend a specific product or routine for them. If you do a general Ask Me Anything when you post the question box, then you can give multiple suggestions of what they can ask you questions about. And one of your suggestions could be to ask about the offer. But what you don't want to do is post a question box specifically saying like, ask me questions about my offer, because it will seem like you are asking a question for the purpose of marketing and sales rather than to share value or connect with your audience. You actually want to get questions that aren't directly about your offer, because then the stories you create will be more intriguing and seem less salesy. It kind of goes without saying that if all of your stories end with a suggestion to check out your offer, then it will get real salesy real quick. So instead, you want to break up stories that lead into talking about your offer with stories that have nothing to do with sales. So the flow of your slides on Q&A day will look like a question box followed by answer slides where you answer one question at a time. But you don't just want to answer any question that comes in. You want to choose your answer slides strategically. For a good balance of salesy and helpful or engaging content, we recommend keeping your Ask Me Anything responses to about 20% relatable get to know you type questions, 40% questions where you can provide value or valuable answers or even vulnerability, 20% questions that easily lead into your offer as the solution, and 20% direct questions about your launch or offer. So let's talk about what each of those look like. Get to know you questions are simple questions about who you are as a person or a business owner. So if you're a team, you'll want to specify who will be answering questions in your Ask Me Anything and their job title so that people can ask personal questions if they choose to. These questions could be related to where you live, where you're from, if you're in a relationship or have pets, what you're currently binging on Netflix, how long you've been in the business, and on and on and on. Get to know you questions are just basic things that can be answered directly in one word or one sentence, because the goal is to make them easy to read so people can quickly glance and still learn something about you that makes them remember who you are as a person. Don't be afraid to answer questions that you've answered a bunch of times before here. Trust us, we've said we're twins a bajillion times in our marketing, and there are still constantly people in our DMs who are surprised to find out that we're not a couple. So you'll always have new eyes on your stories, and repeating a few basic pieces of information can actually help people remember you. If you consistently mention that you live in Barcelona, the next time someone in your audience hears a reference to Barcelona, their brain will make the connection, oh, Haley lives there. But if every time you choose different get to know you questions, people will have a harder time remembering that information and connecting it to you. So it's okay to answer basic questions repeatedly and have a few things you're known for. So let's get to know you questions. The next type of question you want to answer in your Q&As is valuable or vulnerable answers. Most of the questions you answer should fall into this category. And these are the types of questions that allow you to show your expertise or get deeper than basic get to know you questions. So the point here is to give generous, valuable answers to the questions people ask without selling anything or asking for anything in return. Your only goal is to provide your audience with free advice that helps them out, or to share something vulnerable or humanizing that they can relate to. So for us, that usually looks like giving business advice for new copywriters, or sharing advice about writing exercises or writing processes that help people get started or get through a writing rut, and talking about what was hard for us early on in business and what we do differently. Usually these stories will be longer with more text or talking if you're doing videos, but you still want to pick questions that you can answer in one slide with text that's big enough to be readable. The next type of question you want to answer is questions that lead into your offer as the solution. Generally, you can treat these like value or vulnerable answer questions, but you would add a plug for your offer at the end. So you still want to give some helpful or actionable advice in these stories, but then you can finish the slide with a lead into your offer. So that sounds something like, if you want to learn more about, or if you want more help with, or if you want me to take it off your plate. So go through the questions people submit and think about which ones you answer or solve in your offer. And if you don't get any questions that naturally lead into an offer, are there any questions where your offer could be a good next step, or could you answer a related question? Remember that you should aim to answer their question at least in part in your story, and then direct them to your offer if they want more help or the full answer. So for example, if you're a fitness coach and someone asks, what's a good booty workout they can do in 20 minutes, then you can give them an answer. You could even share an exact routine you provide in one of your fitness coaching programs. Just don't be afraid to give away too much, because you're never going to be able to give away all or most of your knowledge in one story slide. And then after you share your advice, then tie it back to your offer. Like, if you want more booty workouts like this, then check out my program. And the final type of questions you want to answer in a Q&A are questions that are specifically about your offer. So these can be questions you get frequently about the offer, or they could be questions that have to do with objections. Often those will be questions like financial questions, so do you offer payment plans, or how much does it cost? But they could also be logistical questions like, I can't come on Tuesdays, can I still join? Or how much time will it take to complete or see a difference or get results? These could also be questions about whether your offer is applicable to specific people, like what if I'm a beginner, or would this still be good for me if I don't have an email list yet, or between these two offers, which one would be right for me? Stories that answer questions about your offer are non-negotiable stories you must post on day 5, because if one person has a question about your offer, chances are someone else does too. You'll save yourself tons of time in the DMs by answering questions publicly, and you can even plan out some stories in advance if you know what questions people have been asking in your DMs earlier in the week. Just write the answer ahead of time and have it ready to use as a response. And you can also use these stories to plug your offer again, so feel free to add a button to check it out, or add DM me for the link to check it out. So those are the 4 types of stories we recommend posting. If you have a large audience, you should have plenty of questions to choose from that naturally span these types of content. But if you're just starting out on Instagram and you don't receive many or any responses to question boxes, or if you don't receive questions that relate to one of these content types, then don't be afraid to submit questions yourself. These Ask Me Anything categories will help you keep your content engaging by giving a good balance of light, readable content, actually valuable content, and content promoting your launch. So try to include every category if you can. Also remember that you're not obligated to answer every question publicly, so you want to avoid posting too many stories on AMA Day. If you post too many answers, it will have a negative impact on how many people see your stories. So how many stories should you post in total? We recommend you pick 1 to 2 personal questions, 2 to 4 questions you have a great answer to but don't lead into your offer, 1 to 2 that perfectly lead into your offer, and 1 to 2 FAQs about your offer. You want to shuffle these types of responses and the length of your responses, so switch off between short questions that are easy to answer and longer questions that will take more time and attention. So for example, you might post a personal get to know you question that's short, then a long value answer, then another valuable answer that is short or medium in length, then a valuable answer that leads into your offer, an FAQ about your offer. The point is you're shuffling them. And then you can repeat some or part of that flow again until you have maybe about 10 slides. There's really no need to overthink the order as long as you don't have multiple long paragraph slides back to back to back. And if you're wondering if you should post them throughout the day or in batches, generally we recommend posting the story box in the morning and then posting your answers in one single batch later in the day rather than spreading them throughout the day. There's actually a technical reason for this, but we don't have time to get into it now. So if you want to learn more about technical story strategy, like when it's best to post and how many stories you should be posting and when it's best to post 6 stories all at once versus throughout the day, then you can check out our course, Sell with Stories. We have an entire module there all about how to increase your views and engagement on your stories, and we go into story analytics more in depth. Another thing you can do to keep people reading throughout your Q&A slides is to include opportunities for engagement. So when it's appropriate, you can add polls, reaction bars, and quizzes. Polls work well with all types of content. So after giving advice, you can ask, do you agree? After posting something vulnerable, you can ask, can you relate, or have you ever experienced this? And after sharing something about yourself, you can ask, what about you? Like, how many pairs of shoes do you have, with a poll of different ranges? Or you can have your audience answer a question instead of you, like, let's poll the audience on this one. This works best for questions that are opinion-based, or we're getting more responses is valuable to see. Like for the question, how often should I send newsletters? There's no correct amount, and it could be more interesting to see how often on average your audience is sending them or how often they read newsletters. But avoid asking your audience to vote on an answer to a question where there's only one correct answer because they could get it wrong, and you want to give people the correct answers in your Q&As. Reaction bars are a great option to get to know you, specifically if you can guess what the typical reaction would be, like having a laugh emoji reaction bar with a funny picture of your pet, or a heart eyes emoji with a beautiful view. We recommend reaction bars when the content is visual, so for pictures or videos instead of walls of text, because people are more likely to have an immediate visceral reaction. The exception would be for screenshots of reviews or for questions like this one. Quizzes work well on get to know you questions. So if someone asks where you live, you could post a photo or video of somewhere local you love or of yourself near a landmark or recognizable location with a quiz letting people guess the location. Feel free to have fun with your responses if you do this one, like with a hint or references in your quiz answers. Like if you have the question, where did you go to school? Then one of the answers could be something random like Hogwarts. But how you play with get to know content can help people relate to you more and also get to know more of your interests. So that was Q&A day. Now let's move on to day 6, the sneak peek. So last Sunday, I was passing by a farmer's market here in Minneapolis, and I was kind of in a rush, so I wasn't planning to stop at any of the stalls. But then I saw a sign that said free vegan milk chocolate samples. So of course I stopped because, like everyone else in the world, I love a free sample. And surprise, surprise, I ended up buying 2 chocolate bars because once I had some, I knew I wanted more. And you can think of day 6 the same way. The sneak peek is when you give your audience free chocolate samples. You're giving them a free taste of what they'll get when they get your offer to increase their interest and their desire for it and make them want more. The key to a good sneak peek is choosing what to give your audience a peek into. So there are a lot of ways you could play it, and it very much depends on what you're offering. So let's talk about different types of sneak peeks you can give your audience. Common sneak peeks include the free sample, the partial preview, the offer in action, the end result showcase, and the deleted scenes. We'll explain what each one of these looks like, starting with the free sample. So like the free chocolate samples, a free sample is where you give a small piece of your offer to your audience for free for a limited time. So that could look like releasing a small piece of a large whole. So for example, if you're a musician with an online course about learning how to play, let's say, the handpan, then you could release one handpan warm-up exercise from your library of hundreds of warm-ups and play along exercises. You could also release an introductory part of a large whole, like releasing the first chapter of your book. You could make a bonus part of a large whole free for one day, as long as the bonus works as a standalone and doesn't need the rest of the offer to make sense. So like you could release a bonus lesson on how to start composing and playing handpan duets, or you could teach one technique or skill that you share with your clients within the offer, like teaching them how to bend a note on the handpan. This type of sneak peek works especially well if you have an educational offer that has a lot of value, because sharing a tiny piece of it with your audience will prove your authority. If you have an offer where you can't really offer a free sample on your stories, but where you can give free samples in real life, like with a vegan chocolate, then you could turn the story into a free sample preview where you show real-time reactions from people in real life who are first introduced to your product. That's more possible for some products than others, like it's easier to get real-time reactions to a protein bar rather than a razor, but it's one way you could play with this type of sneak peek to make it work for a physical product. The next type of sneak peek is a partial preview. So unlike the free sample, where you're giving a complete part of your offer to your audience for free, the partial preview is about teasing your audience. So you're not giving a complete part of the offer away, you're leaving something to be desired. That can look like blacking out parts of the offer, like giving a preview of a book or resource where some parts are blacked out and you're just highlighting or revealing one sentence or paragraph or a part that you want to discuss. Or it could look like hinting at part of the offer, like if you have a recipe cookbook and you give away one Thanksgiving recipe for a side, then you could say, my family favorite Thanksgiving side dish is on page 31, and I always do page 98 for the main, and it gets rave reviews. Or you could teach the what without the how. So for example, in our Sell with Stories course, we teach our story, sell, and sell formula for writing Instagram stories that sell. So for the sneak peek, we could talk about what the formula is and why you need it, but we don't share how it's done. So we might share the name and the purpose of the formula, but we don't tell you how the formula works, or we give you the basic method or equation of the formula, but we don't tell you what each part means. The partial preview is especially great if your offer has anything that your audience won't get until they get the offer, like information. But it's not the best for products where what you see is what you get, like a line of silk scarves. The next type of sneak peek is called the offer in action. With this type of sneak peek, you give your audience a preview of what your offer looks like in practice. And this works especially well for services that are personalized for each client. So for example, if you're a coach, you could share a personalized homework assignment you gave one of your clients and explain how you came up with that assignment and why it's helpful. Or if you have private messaging as part of your offer, you could share screenshots of what your messages look like, or a video recording or audio message you sent back and forth. Of course, you would need to ask your client permission in that case. And if you offer website template customizations, then you could give a sneak peek into customization that you're working on for another client in the moment. The point is, you're sharing a sneak peek of what working with you or buying from you will look like. This one is similar to a free sample, but the sample you're sharing is something every customer won't personally receive since the offer is customized, but you're giving them a peek at what's on the table. You can also use this type of sneak peek for a product offer. So for example, for a skincare line, you could show how you use the products in your morning routine, and for reusable makeup wipes, you could show yourself actually removing your makeup in real time and then cleaning the wipes for reuse. The next type of sneak peek is called the end result showcase. With the end result showcase, you show your audience a sneak peek of what the end result of your offer will look like. So for example, it could be a showcase of 10 different website designs based off of the same template that look entirely different, or showing a complete dance sequence you'll learn in a dance lesson, or a show of the different complexities or techniques you'll be able to play on the handpan after completing each module in the course. With this type of sneak peek, you're not showing what's actually included in the offer, you're just giving a peek at the final result of what using the offer will look like. So for the handpan course example, you might show yourself playing a basic handpan pattern and say, this is what you'll look like after module 1, and then you would show how you progress after module 2 and module 3, or just what it would be like at the very beginning versus the very end. And you're not explaining what the different techniques are within each module, you're just showing the value through the end result. The final type of sneak peek is the deleted scenes. You can think of the deleted scenes as what didn't make it in. So what's something you were planning to include in the offer that didn't make it? Maybe it's an early iteration or something you wanted to include but had to cut in order to keep the product at a desired length or style or complexity. But with the deleted scenes sneak peek, you will share that part with your audience. You should only ever use the deleted scene as your sneak peek if you're sharing what was cut and it will prove that your product is even better than what you didn't include. So for example, when Hale and I launched our best-selling masterclass, Instagram Content Mastery, we shared a lesson that was cut from the masterclass to our email list. And that lesson was about how to market yourself as a beginner versus how to market yourself as an expert. We ultimately decided to cut it from the masterclass to keep the pacing of the masterclass right and keep it within 70 minutes, but we knew it was still valuable information, so we framed it as a sneak peek, like this is what didn't make it in, so if you found this valuable, just imagine how valuable you'll find the information we did include. With whatever deleted scene you choose, you should be able to frame it in that way as something that proves that your offer is even better than what you're sharing now. So those are 5 ways you can use the sneak peek for your offer. No matter which way you decide to play it, it's important that your sneak peek leaves intrigue for the rest of your offer. So the overall sneak peek will look like teasing the sneak peek, then giving or showing the sneak peek, then teasing what the full offer would give them, and giving an urgency reminder. Since this is day 6 of your launch, this is the time to add urgency messaging to your stories, like tomorrow's the last day to get this offer, or only 2 days left to get it 30% off. You can include the urgency at the beginning of your stories as your hook if you want to, but more than likely you'll have a strong hook for your sneak peek stories, so you can add the urgency message at the end with your call to action. Now let's move on to the final day of your launch, day 7, which is the last chance. This is where you seal the deal with anyone who's been waiting to buy or on the fence or putting it off until the last minute. You want to keep your last chance stories straightforward and to the point. You've done the work of educating about your offer over the course of the week, and at this point, most people who watch your stories will have seen you talk about your launch offer at least once. So the goal on this last day is not to educate or storytell. The goal of the last day is to make it very clear that time is running out. Urgency is often a very powerful motivator in people's decision to buy, but because you've been posting stories for a whole week, at this point you won't be pressuring people to jump on an offer quickly or make a hasty decision. Instead, you'll be giving a helpful and loud reminder to the people who've been wanting to buy your offer that this is their chance to get whatever benefit comes with buying now during your launch. So a last chance message can include a morning countdown, a rehash of the offer, reviews or a challenged objection, an urgent reminder of why they want it now, and a final countdown. On the morning of the last day of your launch, post a countdown reminder early on in the day. You could also do this at the end of your stories on the previous day, depending on when your audience is most active. But ideally, you'll post your first last day countdown reminder about 18 to 24 hours before your launch ends. That's especially important if you have clients all over the world. So make sure your countdown timer is set to the right time zone and is counting down to the actual expiration time of your offer, not just an estimation. When you start a countdown, it will stay in your countdown feature until the countdown ends, so you can post the same countdown multiple times. This is important because people can set countdown reminders by tapping on your countdown, and then they'll get a notification in their notification feed that says something like, "This countdown expires at midnight." So for that reason, you want the name of your countdown to be something that works on its own without the other words you post on the slide. So instead of naming your countdown 20% off ends in, or 20% off countdown, or get everything 20% off, try something that gives people the context they need to remember what the countdown reminder was for. So last chance for 20% off the Write Your Site workbook, or 20% off Maha copy sale. When you post the countdown, you can also add text that says turn on countdown reminders with an arrow pointing to the countdown. So that way people can choose to be reminded when the sale is about to end. That small call to action can make a big difference in how many people choose to tap to get countdown reminders, and it will also help anyone who doesn't know about that feature. After you've posted your countdown timer, you want to post a few stories that rehash the basics of your offer and remind people why they want it now. You'll want to get as much information across as quickly as possible, with the focus always on urgency and that the offer is running out. So you'll get max views if you keep this to 1 to 2 really clear and concise slides. That might look like rehashing the basics of the offer, like the Write Your Site workbook is everything you need to write your site by this Thursday. Then you could challenge an objection. So if you think you can't write a website yourself and have it convert, you just don't have our template yet with a screenshot of reviews. Then you would offer urgency or why they want it now. So it's worth its weight in gold at full price, but today's your last day to get it 40% off. Next week it's $4.99, get it for $2.99 today. In your last chance stories, you want to be as explicit as possible. So don't just say 20% off, name the full price and or the sale price. And don't just say to write your stories in 3 to 5 days, say to finish your website by this Thursday. And don't say you have hours left, say this offer expires at midnight PST. Say whether this will be the lowest price ever or when the next time someone will be able to get it at this price will be, if that's applicable, like it won't be on sale again until Black Friday. This is also a chance to post some of the strongest, most transformational reviews you've received during the week if you have them. So that would look like having a countdown timer with why they want it now. So you could have a countdown timer on your first slide with, it's your last chance to get 20% off, here's why you want it. And then on the next slide or the next few slides, you would have a review with some commentary, like she bought the workbook on Monday and has already published her new website. Just look at those conversion numbers. Then you would rehash the offer and CTA, like this is everything you need to write a website, get it for 20% off, and then on the button you could have the price. Those stories should be posted with your first countdown timer. Again, that's 18 to 24 hours before your offer expires. And these are your main last chance stories. But we also recommend posting an evening countdown reminder about 2 to 3 hours before your sale ends. So if you have lots of international clients who will just be waking up or finishing work as your sale ends, you can post a final countdown reminder when there's 1 hour left. We usually only post a 1 hour left slide in addition to a 2 to 3 hours left slide if it's a big launch with lots of interest or if it's one of our biggest sales of the year like Black Friday. But if you want to go ham and post it for even a $12 resource, then that's totally okay and go for it. So that takes us to the end of our 7-day story launch strategy. We also want to mention that you don't have to do these stories in this order except day 1 and day 7. You can swap the other days around as you choose. Generally, we like to start with the problem, but you could, for example, switch the cost of waiting and the sneak peek story days, or change when you do the Q&A stories. The purpose of this 7-day sequence is to give you a strategic marketing message for every day, but you don't need to treat it like a rule book. Take what works and leave the rest. Now let's talk bigger picture. When should you plan your launch? Some say weekends, especially Friday and Saturday, are the biggest days of consumption, so they can be the best days for sales. But others say Mondays and Tuesdays are better, as they've been shown to be the days of the week that have the most online sales. And there are still other businesses that see their highest sales midweek. For example, a nail salon or a lash expert might have more bookings on Thursdays as people get ready to go out on Friday or the weekend. So the perfect time to run your launch really depends on your business and your audience. From our experience, most people buy during a launch on the last day or two when the sale is about to end because people procrastinate buying. And once the urgency messages start to come in, like only 1 day left, people remember to jump on it. So our goal is always to plan our launches to maximize sales at the end, meaning we plan for the last day of a launch to be on the busiest sales day. Personally, we tend to see our highest sales on weekends, but we also have a lot of engagement on Instagram on Mondays. So typically we like to run launches from Monday to Monday, meaning we begin the launch period on a Monday and it ends the following Monday night. That way we have lots of eyes on our stories when we introduce the sale, and then we have last reminders during the weekend when lots of people are buying, and anyone who forgot about it on the weekend and sees it again on Monday has a final chance to buy. But we want to reiterate that this is specific to our business and what our analytics look like, and it might not be the best strategy for you. So pay attention to when your story views are highest, when your buyers are the most active, what days of the week you make the most sales, and then plan your launch accordingly. You may also want to consider the paycheck effect, which shows that spending tends to increase significantly during typical payday weeks. In the US, that's usually around the beginning and middle of each month for those who are paid once or twice a month. If you know everyone gets paid around the first of the month, then avoid making the very last day of your launch towards the end of the month, like on the 30th. And then after your launch ends, you enter your post-launch phase. So you don't just want to end your launch and forget about it. Use the post-launch time to analyze how your launch went. Go back and take a look at which days were your highest selling days, which stories had the most views, and what went wrong and what went right. What were the most important frequently asked questions? What did you not get to? And use the insights you get from this launch to improve your next launch. So that brings us to the end of this masterclass. We hope you're feeling more confident than ever about how to approach your next launch and how to use Instagram stories to sell your launch offer. Before we go, if you want more Instagram story education from us and more ideas for stories that sell, check out our course, Sell with Stories. In that course, we teach you our strategy for selling on stories outside of a launch, which is essential for making passive income and consistent sales. And Sell with Stories is a course that includes tons of plug and play resources. So not only is it super educational, but it also gives you tons of resources and templates to help you write and create stories way faster, including 200 story hook prompts, a ton of story tell and sell sequences, which are basically slide by slide copy templates for every type of story we recommend. We have Canvas story design templates, plug and play poll, question box, and quiz questions, a giant gift keyword bank, and more. You can find it along with our other copywriting resources inside the Maha Copy Shop. Again, thanks for joining us for this masterclass. We'd love to hear how these 90 minutes went for you. So if you want to be our new favorite person, go open up Instagram right now and DM us at Maha Copy Co with your thoughts and feedback, especially if you loved it. We would really love to hear if you loved it. But if you didn't, we want to hear from you too. And if you have any questions after watching this masterclass, you can also send us a message. We personally reply to all of our DMs, so it might take us a couple days to get back to you, but you can definitely reach us there. And if it's a long question, feel free to send us a voice message. We love voice messages and we'll probably send you one back. So thanks again for joining. Can't wait to hear what you think, and we hope you have a lovely day and a very successful launch.